Hey guys, John here with Growing with Gordon, and I am looking forward to diving deeper into what got me into investing in the first place. I know I touched on it on earlier episodes, and so I just wanted to really go into as much detail as I can on just why I went the investing route and talk about the first rental that I ever owned. Really, it started as the first home that I bought, and I was very fortunate to have saved and scrounged and purchase my first property in Richmond, Virginia, in an area called Northside. And so my budget was to keep it under $200,000, which in today's day and age, $200,000 seems like either you're buying a stick house or it's going to need a total renovation. Especially up here in Northern Virginia, it's really hard to find something at $200,000 unless you're getting a condo. But again, different conversation for another episode. So in Richmond, in Northside is where I ended, but I was searching all over Richmond and I didn't really know about Northside. So I had to do my own research, drive through the area, drive through the community, talk to my realtor at the time, because when I purchased this house, I wasn't in real estate. I was an entrepreneur working on the urban farm with my business partner and working with a landscaper and just doing odd jobs to save as much as I could. And so I looked, obviously any person in Richmond would like to be either in the city. So I was looking to see what I could find, but I couldn't afford anything in the city for obvious reasons. Other areas I was looking in were Church Hill, Forest Hill, and exploring just neighborhoods, driving through the neighborhood in the morning, in the evening, seeing what it was like, because that's the best due diligence you can do, is just learning about an area, exploring it yourself, going on walks, walking your dog, walking with your family, just talking to the neighbors, because there are things realtors can't talk about. So the best way to find out is to do that yourself. And so I settled on Northside more so for the property because it was one of the larger ones that I had seen. It had the most bedrooms, and the goal was I didn't care if I had roommates. I had enough friends in Richmond who were looking for housing anyways, so I was just going to fill it full of my friends and figure out the details of who's cleaning what after the fact. So this property was, I guess, a 4-square detached home on a good-sized lot, which means it's like a colonial. There was a garage in the back that was detached, which I'll get to that in a minute. And the key was that this home was fully renovated maybe 8 years ago and had been sitting on the market. So no one had purchased it yet, maybe because the area was still up and coming. A lot of gentrification, which that's another episode on the pros and cons of that. So it caught my attention because it didn't need any work, and the seller was, like, the home had been sitting on the market for a few weeks. So the seller was, in that time, I guess, getting desperate to sell the home. So wrote an offer after exploring the neighborhood, exploring what was close, and talking to the neighbors, and my agent's offer was accepted, or I guess my offer was accepted. And I couldn't believe it. In a month, I was going to live in my first house, which I'd been renting ever since college. So just home ownership was a whole new level and learning curve, because now it was up to me to take care of the roof, take care of everything, all the house maintenance. But at the time, interest rates were in the fives and sixes, so still pretty, average to what we're used to. But since it's such a lower cost to purchase, the monthly payment was roughly $1,100. So there were 5 rooms in this property, and the 5th room was a finished attic that was heated and cooled, and that's where I ended up staying just because it was the coolest space, and I wanted to rent out the other rooms that were larger or closer to bathrooms, because I didn't care. I was staying with my girlfriend most of the time anyways. And so I was able to cover the mortgage and then mortgage, insurance, taxes, and then some at the end of the day. So this is the coolest part about the first rental. And a lot of people, this is one of the easiest ways to start building your rental empire or portfolio, is by living in the house and what's called house hacking. So this is what I was doing without knowing I was doing it. I just wanted to surround myself with friends, rent $300, $400 a room. Bigger rooms were more, smaller rooms were less. And here I am working with a gardener, landscaper, building my own urban farm, and I don't have a living expense, which is, to most people, the most expensive expense, or the biggest expense that you have to work through. And so I was just blown away by this idea, and that's what really started to get me involved in learning more about what is real estate investing. So just as a bullet point overview, house hacking means you live in a space and rent out the other space. Very simple terms. So it works for really any property. I've heard of people being very creative with it. But with this sense, with the property, I just rented out the rooms, had separate leases for those rooms, and through the advice of a friend, I created a cleaning schedule so that everything was fair across the board. So everyone would keep the common areas clean, vacuum, do the dishes. And it was a wild time because there were, at most I had 5 people, well, 5 including myself, living in the property. So obviously it was a full house, but it was fun because people could have dinner together. You could also hang out by yourself. There's plenty of parking, and we were still 2 miles from Richmond, so very close. People could ride their bike to get to work or whatnot. So it was just a very convenient property, which I am still renting to this day. So I lived in this property for the rest of my time in Richmond. I loved it. It wasn't in the downtown area, but I liked being kind of outside, a little to the north. And again, there were homes all around me being renovated, being sold, flipped. Not too many rentals at the time, and it was interesting. There was an empty lot next door, which I remember at the time we tried to find the seller and purchase it from him, and he ended up building I believe it was a duplex or a quad. Duplex means there are 2 units, a quad means there's 4. I don't remember exactly. So there's a rental property right next door, but it's fine. It's my intent with this home is to keep it forever because it's been such a good security I treat it like a 401k or a retirement fund. And with homes being renovated and sold of similar square footage, at some point it'll need a full remodel, but it continues to appreciate. So while I rent it, appreciation is one of the secret yet most powerful ways to build wealth in real estate. And that's over time, historically, homes will continue to increase in value. Not always. There are shifts in the market, which is common, but over a longer period of time, this is what happens. So I want to kind of take a step back. And I said earlier that this is one of the most efficient ways to build your rental portfolio. So depending on what stage of life you're in, obviously, if family with kids, it might be a little more difficult because you don't want to move every year, 2 years. But if you're younger, single, or have a partner and you don't mind moving, if you're on the same page, when you purchase your first home, you have to live in it for a year, and you can use different loan products, FHA, first-time home buyer, potentially get down as low as 3.5%, and that's the down payment. I'm just going to keep it simple. For this property, I just use a 5% down conventional loan, and that allowed me to bring very little money to the table, get into the first home, fill it full of friends, as I talked about, and be able to cover my living expenses. So when I got married and moved up to Northern Virginia, I ended up continuing to rent all the rooms individually to make more, and then eventually switched to just one lease to tenants, not making as much as I was before, but I don't have to deal with 5 leases. I just deal with 1 lease. But what people can do, and it's a shoulda, coulda, woulda scenario, I wish I had done this more, was scraped and saved, and in a year or 2, refinance the current home into different loan product, or kept it in a conventional 5% down, and then in a couple of years purchased a second home using the second home loan option, within the area. Again, talk to your lenders about what options work best for you, and purchased another home for 10% down. And so now I would have done the same thing, lived in a room, filled the others, rented it out, covered my expenses, made a little bit of money, and use a snowball effect to any excess funds once the emergency bucket was filled, which I'll talk about in a little bit, would then funnel back to paying off the first house as quickly as possible. And then what people can do is in a year or two, you can buy another house. If it's something that you're moving into as a primary residence or as an investment property, but now in 4, 5, 6 years, you can own 3 properties in an area that you live in that you know all the data, statistics, so it's a really safe bet. So the risk is, what if you have 3 roofs that break, or you're replacing 3 dishwashers or whatnot? That's why you have an emergency bucket for each property of whatever amount that gives you comfort. If it's $5,000, if it's $10,000, if you have a home warranty plus a little bit of money, whatever the case may be, but you're saving money so that if a big thing breaks, you have that to dig into to fix whatever the issue is. So what a lot of folks have done is you can buy a property every year, if that is your focus, with time management, money management, and you can, obviously you're not going to retire, but once these homes start getting paid off, or if you sell them once they appreciate after a certain amount of time, and what's the term? I'll have to find the term, but if you transition them into larger units or multiplexes, then you can really start making a good amount of cash flow, which if you're working full-time or part-time, you can start to feel a little more financially independent, which is the goal for all of us in this world. We love it, and we want to choose what we do with our time and not let the world dictate what we do. So it's my goal is what I ended up doing was really honing in on that property, and there is a detached garage, which I converted into a detached dwelling unit, a studio loft, which currently it's under the same lease, so the tenants can do with it as they wish. And before that was the case, there was someone living in there. I've lived in there whenever I go stay for the weekends. And the goal, if we ever move back to Richmond, is to use it as an Airbnb. So we're just really, truly, I wanted to utilize every square footage of that space to maximize the potential money or cash flow that could come from it. So for the next property, the intent is there are so many different scenarios that I have, which are there different investing routes. So different scenarios that you can look into. I've said this in a few episodes, depending on the experience that you want to have with owning rentals. Do you want a single family home? Do you want a duplex, triplex, quad? There are pros and cons to all of those. And one of the pros is that you have one roof, but multiple units under that roof. So there might be higher expenses when something breaks. And if one unit isn't rented, then the others should cover, or the goal is for those to cover the mortgage. So then once you have that second, third, fourth unit rented, then you're cash flowing heavily. A route that I'm a little more comfortable with from the experience that I've built over the years is to find a landlord who's owned multiple properties and has purchased multiple over their life. So if they own 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 units, if they're multifamilies or single families, but the goal is to purchase the portfolio as a whole versus individually. And if I'm able to do that, because I have the network of investors and cash and banks with a proven record, so that if we're able to purchase 14 properties, then analyze those properties, probably flip some of them and sell them, because when you kind of buy in bulk, you usually you negotiate a deal, so you get them at a lower cost per property. So with the portfolio, when you're purchasing in bulk, you're able to hypothetically negotiate a lower cost per unit. Like if you go in the Home Depot buying one mulch bag for $3.67 versus if you buy 20 bags or 40 bags, you might get them for $2.50 or something. So the reason why I would rather purchase properties in bulk, yes, it's a higher upfront cost. It's a different loan structure. But the benefit is that you're able to get more homes at a lower cost. So then, once purchased, you can renovate all of them because hypothetically they'll probably need repairs. You never know, but that's the risk with it. And you choose, depending on which route you go, you can just rent all of them. And as tenants leave, fix up the property, increase the rent, which will then increase the total value of the portfolio and increase cash flow to either the investors, yourself, the bank. Or option 2 is, let's say there are 14 properties. You really only want to manage, if you're managing them or you're having a property manager, you may want to manage 10 of them or 8 of them. So then you find the other 4 or 6, see which ones are in better areas, or compare the rental values in some areas versus others, just depending on which way you want to go about it. But renovate and sell multiple homes to, perfect world, pay off the loan that's owed or come close to it. So then hypothetically you own multiple homes free and clear, which have been updated, which have the highest rents at that particular time. So then it's pure cash flow. So this whole process may take a year to 2 years, and if you go from 14 homes to 6 homes, now you've helped create like a pipeline for a real estate team. You've maxed out rent at particular locations. You have multiple renovated homes, and you've set yourself up for success to help weather any sort of market shift or downturn, because people will always need a place to rent. So that is the next kind of goal that I'm looking for. And you can do it, the goal is to do it in Richmond, but you can really do it in any city. It just depends, again, on the experience that you want to have with that. But the easiest way to do it is to figure out a budget, see how much money you're saving, and if you are interested in purchasing a rental property, do the research, connect yourself with a network of other folks who are doing it, and figure out, start studying the market, studying what different rents are in different areas versus what the cost is to purchase a home, and see if it makes sense if you break even or if you're making a little bit of money, because renting, you're not going to retire in the first year. It takes time to build that portfolio, to build that appreciation in the equity in the homes, to then over time you start to see the benefit of owning rentals. So any questions, if you want me to dive deeper into any details, just shoot me a message, and I look forward to hearing your comments. All right, talk to you guys soon. Bye.